Ridiculous Fishing is a game about fishing with machine guns. Sounds pretty cool, right? Mini Metro is a minimalistic subway layout design game. No Man's Sky is a game about exploration and survival in an infinitely procedurally generated universe. And finally, Crypt of the Necrodancer is a hardcore roguelike rhythm game. All of these games sound fantastic, right? It makes you want to play them straight away, right? No one? Not really? Okay. They should. But why is that? It's because each of those statements is unique. They're immediately interesting. You can visualize the description immediately, straight away. And they're succinct and easy to explain. If you were to talk about ridiculous fishing and say it's about fishing with machine guns, the premise is really simple and it's really easy to convey that information to someone else. So those are all descriptions of these games, but they can also double up as pitching statements. And tonight I'm going to talk to you about pitching in regards to the Kiwi Game Starter. So when we pitch our game, it should be very similar to those other statements we saw before. It should be unique, they should be immediately easy to explain, easy to visualize. So I want to talk about the Kiwi Game Starter. So this is a competition that's coming up in a couple of months. Stephen, our chairman, is going to go through the specific details after my presentation, but I'll cover a little bit about it. But I'll focus more around the pitching aspect of it. So what is it? It's a competition for small and startup indie dev studios. And there are 2 rounds effectively. So one of the things you have to submit is a 4-page business proposal. So you have to talk about why you think your game should win. If you make it past that bit and you get to the finals, there is a presentation to a judging panel. And the judging panel normally is comprised of people who are well known in the industry. So in my year, 2014, we had Stephen, who was the chairman, who most of you already know. We had Mario Winans, who is the founder, one of the founders of Pickpop. I'm sure you guys all know Pickpop, one of the oldest and largest game studios in New Zealand. We had David Z, a very prominent member of Autodesk. And last but not least, we had a guy called David Brevik. You guys know who David Brevik is? He does. Do you? Do you? No? He's the guy who made Diablo and co-founded Blizzard North. So yeah, it was just slightly intimidating for some guy with some piss-ass game. But it was a really good experience. And so in 2014, for the very first Kiwi Game Starter, our team was very lucky to win that competition. And it's not because we had a technically amazing game. In fact, probably quite the opposite. So in the finals, we had 2 other competitors. So we had Frogship, who made this wonderful game called Swordy. Oh, and there he is. There's one of the members there, Lexi. And even 2 years ago, that game was amazing. Like, it looked amazing, it played amazing. It's a physics-based brawler. It's really fun to play. And there were crowds of people lining up to play the game. Heaps and heaps of people. And on the other side, we had Ryan McKee, a good friend of mine, who had a VR racing game where you race a skimmer on the surface of Mars. It was one of the first VR games I saw, and it was just so cool. I mean, I was blown away by it. So I had these 2 really amazing games, and then I had my game, Phantasmal, which I had largely coded by myself, and I think I had a year's worth of Unity by that point. So you can probably imagine what that was like. Also, I made a very poor decision. I didn't really have a very good laptop at that time, so I used my friend's one, and he had a 5-year-old Dell. And so, combined with my less than adequate coding skills, the game ran at around 15 to 20 frames per second. And due to set programming skills, they had a memory leak, so it would run after 10 minutes at 5 to 8 frames per second. So basically, I was demoing a slideshow to the guy who made Diablo. He was really not. You know, the embarrassing thing was, I actually didn't know who he was when he showed up. And then he was so nice. He said, "Oh, yeah, it's running all slow. I've had this experience before. I didn't actually know who he was." And then Ben actually stood up at the keynote address and said, "This is David Brennick, he made the and I just like, oh, it was like watching The Office. You guys know what The Office is? Yeah, it was like that. It just felt awful. So there's also some really nice prizes that are associated with the Kiwi Game Star if you win or if you're runner-up as well. Steve, once again, will cover that. So I'd like to talk about general pitching principles, just a really quick overview. So generally when we talk about pitching, there are three kind of key things. So the first thing is identifying the problem or the gap. So if we're talking about games specifically, is there a particular niche that you're going to fill? And of course the solution is how are you going to do that? And thirdly, the market size or the potential profitability behind it. So one of the things that I understand within my year, I'm not sure about last year, is that the issue with a lot of applications was that it was all about how cool the game was, and very little around the business and the marketing aspect. So I think like 90%, something like that, in that vicinity, talked about how cool the game was, with nothing at all about the marketing aspects and how the game can potentially sell. And that's not the right thing to do. In fact, it needs to be 90% about the business and maybe a little bit about the game itself. You need to communicate what the game is, obviously, the premise of it, but this is a business proposal, so it needs to be largely about business. And one of the key things we talk about that's central to everything are the USPs and the hooks. So we talk about USPs. A USP is a unique selling point. So what makes your game special? Like with Ridiculous Fishing, a game where you're fishing with machine guns. There's no other game like it, or there wasn't at that time. Well, actually, someone copied their ideas, and that's a slightly different case. But you have to have something really amazing. And when we talk about a USP, it can be a singularly amazing idea, something really cool, or it could be a combination of fairly common ideas combined into something very unique. So for example, I talked about Curse the Necrodancer. So Curse the Necrodancer is a game about, it's basically a roguelike, so a traditional roguelike where it's kind of turn-based and you kind of move through a dungeon, kind of killing monsters and looting and that sort of stuff. And then on the other side, it's layered on top, there's a rhythm game, so you actually have to go dancing through a dungeon killing monsters. So both fairly generic ideas, but combine into something really unique, something quite mesmerizing. So as well as having an external statement as to why your game is cool, the reason why having an actual pitch statement clear in your own mind is to be able to first of all articulate to yourself why your game is really cool. Because you need to be able to tell yourself first before you tell other people, right? And when you do that, market research is also your friend. So it pays to go and look in Google and see if this idea that you think is so awesome, has it already been made? Is it currently being made? And talk to your friends, talk to other developers, talk to other professionals. Test it out, always test it out. So I'd like to go on to the next section, which is specifically around the two pieces of documentation. So this is actually in our NZGDA official forum at the moment. It's kind of a bit under flux, but you can find it there. So I'll talk about the two documents. So the first one is the business case. If I help tab into it. How do I help tab out of this thing? Okay, great. I should have put this through. Oh, okay. We have a keyboard. Okay, thank you.
If you spot that down,
Sorry, let me. So how do I bring this to the bottom screen?
go left, drag it to the left.
Oh, gotcha.
Drag it somewhere.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, so this is my business case. So it's fairly straightforward, but I'll run through it briefly. So introduction obviously is the executive summary about what the game actually is, a bit of a synopsis around the story and all that kind of stuff as well. Fact sheet, which basically tells you where the game can be downloaded, where the demo was downloaded from, and a couple of other key bits of information as well. So here, under the points of difference, this is where I kind of talk about the USPs. I talk about some other similar games that I'm modelling our game after. Overview of the key contents of the key specific things about the game itself. I talk about the description of the market. Because I was making a horror game, there were a few other things I could compare it with. There wasn't anything like any specific case studies, but I drew in as much as I could. I talk about the target audience as well, who I thought would be playing the game. Some stuff about marketing, and then the team as well. So the team is really important, and this is probably something that you'll need to focus on, not just for something like the KGS, but if you ever talk to publishers or investors as well. I think the team is really important because they'll want to know that you have the tenacity to stick through it, you've got a history behind you, so this shouldn't be ignored. So if you talk about the team, put all the credentials that you have, how you can work really well together as well. So that's all really important. So about resources and also future plans there. So nothing really that hard. Nothing hard at all. The key thing is to make sure you are actually talking about some of the marketing aspects and the business aspects, and not just about how cool the game is. Because everyone's game is cool, right? So let's move on to the next thing. So I'm going to talk about the slide deck next. So this is the slide deck that I had to use to present to the panel of 4 judges. Whoops, let me drag it across. So let me run through this really quickly. So yeah, just a bit of a summary on the entire slide deck. But this is really an elaboration of the document that I showed you before. So it's more or less the same kind of stuff. We're talking about the marketing, our strategy, how we'd commercialise, how we'd expand the network, all that kind of stuff. I mentioned at that time we were actually running a Steam Greenlight campaign as well, so I kind of spoke about that stuff just to say, hey, look, we are making some progress. So that helps if you are doing something at the time. Mention all of it. If you're doing a Greenlight, if you're doing a Steam Greenlight campaign, or you're doing a Kickstarter campaign, mention all of that stuff. Talk about the press. So this is something that I've actively been doing. I've actually been approaching a lot of the game's websites, and I've just said, hey, look, would you be interested in our game? So of course, if you have a really great idea, if you have a really unique concept, then that helps for you to sell it. But that's another part where you have to pitch to the press and say, why is your game so special? So a lot of these guys, I mean, at the time when I was doing the KGS, it was mostly kind of small-time press. By the end of it, we had gotten onto IGN, GameSpot, Rock Paper Shop. I'm actually going to Rock Paper Shop right here. But all of this helps. Like, don't dismiss anyone. Like, this all helps. Some YouTubers and streamers. Talk about our commercialization. How we're going to do that. So elaboration on the other document, and how we were going to use the money if we received it, and why we thought we would succeed, and just summarise it from there. So yeah, once again, no rocket science. It's really, really simple. But it's just being aware. So the slide deck, okay, is all well and good. You might be able to put together a document that looks nice and got some great pictures in it. But as you know, when you present to other people, the public speaking aspect of it is super important. And a lot of you might be horrified by public speaking. Actually, who likes public speaking? Put your hand up. Oh, a lot of people. I thought no one would. That kind of, I don't know where to go with that now. That's great. That's really encouraging. I like that. A lot of people like it. But for most people, they hate it, right? Like, if you go up and look on Google, like, what is the most feared thing? What is with people in general, what do they fear most? I think public speaking is number 1, and like death by fire is number 2. It's pretty awful, right? Like, we don't go around talking to tons of people simultaneously in our day-to-day lives, right? So it's a really awkward, weird thing to do, you know? So it's not natural at all. But like anything, it's just like in Skyrim, you know? It is actually, real life is kind of like that when you're talking about public speaking. You just have to keep doing it, so you keep adding up your score in it, right? Until you become whatever adept and master or whatever. It's the same. It's the same. So you just got to keep doing it. And the reason why, obviously, is because if you have this wonderful document, this awesome slide here with great pictures, all this kind of stuff, but you can't communicate that, you can't articulate that, then the whole thing will just fall flat. So 50%, if not more, of that second round when you deliver your presentation you have to do it with effective public speaking. So it's worthwhile to hone those skills now. And beyond the Kiwi Game Starter as well, just having good public speaking skills in general will help you in so many things in terms of game development. For example, if you go to PAX or you go to some of the expo, if you can confidently communicate why your game is cool and talk about your game, that makes a big difference. And this is from personal experience, having gone to PAX and you've got literally thousands of people day after day, and you go, oh yeah, fantastic, well, this is what I really like. But to be able to do that and be enthusiastic about it really makes a huge difference. So how do we get good at public speaking other than just to do it? Well, I've got a couple of things here that might help. So if you want to do it, there's two things. One of them that's really helped me is a club called Toastmasters. Who's heard of Toastmasters? Here, put your hand up. Oh, lots of people. Awesome. So Toastmasters, for those of you who didn't put your hand up, is a club for public speaking. It's started off in America, but there are dozens of clubs around Auckland even. There's hundreds of clubs around the world. And you go there expressly to do public speaking. And like I said, it's not what we just did.
It's going to stop.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I'll wrap up. So I remember when I first went to Toastmasters, my very first time, I can remember it clear as day. I walked into the club, and then we had this thing called table topics, which is they give you a topic and you have to speak about it for 2 minutes without running away. So I managed that bit, not run away, but I walked in, and I think we only had 3 people in the room. So that was what was even more embarrassing. And I can remember going and go, "Hi, my name is Joe." It was like the worst thing ever. Oh my God, it was painful. And I knew it was painful, but I kept going back. And for a month, I just kept going back, feeling like a complete idiot. But after a month, an amazing thing happened. I found out not only could I just tolerate it and was it not that bad, but I actually started really enjoying it. It was actually a whole lot of fun. So it's like anything. So you get over that hump, and then it's not easy, but it becomes easier. And it's a well worth skill investing in, not just for Kiwi Game Starter, but for a whole bunch of stuff for indie development. Right. Oops. So just to summarize, you should all be really proud of the games that you're making, right? Like, you wouldn't be working on it unless you really loved it. You wouldn't be working on some idea you thought was crap, right? So there's obviously some merit in it. So if you, as game developers ourselves, a lot of us do play games, so we probably have some intuition behind it. So we probably do have some awesome ideas out there. But it's being clear about why you think it's cool and doing some research as well to see how it's going to be different to anything else. To begin with, it's a good idea to be able to articulate that concept to yourself. Test it on yourself. Does it sound cool? If you can do that, go to one other person. Tell them. See how they react. If that works out well, then talk to a lot of people. It's about sometimes making the internal the external. If you can sell it to yourself, you can sell it to everybody. Just do your research, always test, and your game can be a massive success too. So I've finished there, but just a little final slide. If you want to ask any questions, if I don't have any questions right now, time for any questions right now, I've got my email, my Twitter account, Facebook, and I'm trying to learn how to use Snapchat and failing horribly at the moment. Any tips would be great. But that's it. So thank you very much.